Hello, everyone, and welcome to the African Tech Authors and Speakers Forum. Our focus is on equipping, especially young, aspiring speakers and writers in the technology field in Africa and here in South Africa to learn the lessons that we who are a bit older wish we knew 20 or 30 years ago. And I've got a wonderful guest and a good friend on the recording today, Orediretse. And let me just tell you a bit about himself, but he will do a better job after this. Head of Solution Engineering at Infobip Africa, extensive expertise in innovating or delivering and crafting innovative tech solutions. His leadership extends to the forefront of emerging technologies, exciting stuff that he's working in: chatbots, cloud contact center solutions, omni-channel strategies, and customer experience. Also a conference speaker, somebody I greatly admire. We've been on a few gigs together. Ore, lovely to see you. How are you? And you tell us about you, because I did it secondhand.
Thanks for the warm welcome, Johan. I really appreciate it. So my name is Ore, and I'm heading solution engineering at Infobip. Very interesting story. When I was doing my degree, I actually had a part-time job. I used to sell radios and electronics. And, it made me develop that sense of public speaking, being able to be confident, selling value to people. And I think that background allowed me to pivot into the space. And how I did it is when I started my first internship as an engineer, the person who was actually executing that internship program happened to be a sales engineer. So you can imagine I just graduated and I'm going into the engineering field, and I find out that you can actually mix sales with engineering. And I think that background kind of set the tone of how my future would actually turn out to be. And it's no mistake that I ended up becoming head of solution engineering because of that, small exposure that I got when I was still an intern.
It shows you that no experience is without value, even if at the time it feels like it.
Correct.
You are a very articulate person. You speak well. You might not believe it. I'm telling you, you do.
Thanks. Yeah.
And that helps you in your relationships, your children, your career, and everything we do. Is that something you're born with? Or is it something that you learn over the years? What do you think?
Sure. And I think with my background, it's a bit of both. I'll tell you why, because both my parents are teachers, right? And if you're a product of teachers, you're already exposed to public speaking, communicating, learning how to express yourself in a very detailed way, because that's a job of a teacher. That's what a teacher does. So I think this is something both my mother and father instilled in me. And as a result, I look at when I was still in primary school, high school. Primary school, I was head boy. So if you're a head boy, you have to, speak to the masses, you have to speak to the students and all that stuff. And I think it was just like, a ripple effect of how just my upbringing was. So it's a bit of both, in my opinion. It's the fact that, I'm a product of two teachers, but then it created that passion for me to do public speaking.
And it is about explaining, articulating. I think some people do struggle, especially introverted people. And a big part of why I'm doing this initiative, Ore, is we yearn for more younger people, especially in the tech space, and especially Africans and females who, as you know, we don't see a lot of them always at our conferences. A lot of them feel shy, they're introverted. Maybe it's not, you had a privilege of the teaching parents, which is great, but if people, schools don't, I think, teach us how to articulate ourselves as much as we should. Can people learn it, even if it's not natural? Can we learn how to speak well? What are some of the tips you can maybe give people on that?
You know what? You can learn it. You have to put in the work, number one, right? You don't necessarily have to have the passion, but you have to put in the work. Not everything that you do requires passion, as a baseline. So you have to put in the work and be willing to learn and make mistakes. I didn't get here because I was perfect. I had to make mistakes. I still get butterflies if I'm meeting certain C-level individuals and they have to make critical business decisions. So be open to learning. And there's enough resources now. Back then when I was a kid, there was no internet. So you can imagine, I worked with what I had, but now you have platforms that will allow you to even do better and find the easiest, shortest, and most efficient way to learn how to do it. So it is possible to do so. You just need to put in the time and effort to do it.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, at the end of the day, the responsibility is yours as an individual. No matter upbringing, no matter what life threw to you, if you believe you have a message to share, and everyone does, equip yourself. And like you say, I mean, again, when I started in speaking, very little on YouTube, very little on YouTube. I had to read the books. I had to screw it up big time to learn from it. So that's the encouragement of people. But I want to ask you about your first speaking gig, whether it was big or small. How did it feel? How did you get it right? And what are the things you messed up? And what did you learn from that?
Okay, so funny story. You were there when I had my first gig, by the way. So luckily, so let's look at it this way. I do two types of gigs. It's either on a personal capacity or on a professional capacity. And actually, I remember that day. So we were doing a masterclass on WhatsApp, and it was still when the WhatsApp Business API had just been launched. So what I've learned is that when you're selected as a speaker, people already have a certain level of expectations of who you are, right? And if you don't leverage off that, it might work to you as a disadvantage. But if you do, that's the beauty in it. You're the expert. You're telling them what's important, right? So on my first gig, I was a bit scared. I was a bit tense. I had to do a demo. I had to do a use case and also talk about how WhatsApp actually adds value and why businesses should go for it. So in that whole scenario, I had to first come up with a problem statement. Once I came up with the problem statement, I looked at what are the possible solutions and how to execute them. So this is what I had in mind into the session. But the more I got into it, the more natural it became, and the more people could connect with me, or the audience rather could connect with me, because even the use cases or even the challenges that I was explaining, they could relate. And in preparing, what was important in that day when I did it is the fact that I really did my due diligence. I studied the audience. I made sure that I understand what walks they come from, because it will make it easier for me that when I look at a specific person, I know who they are, so I know what will resonate with them. And when you know how to do that, it's easy, because when you look at that specific individual, you'll say something relevant to them and they'll nod their heads, right? So those are some of the things I wouldn't say I learned at a technical level, but it's more like when I was talking within that zone of public speaking, I started seeing that, wait a minute, so actually these people do actually value what I say. There's no reason for me to feel inferior. And the more I just talk about what I know, the more it will add value for them.
It's so important because people don't know what you know. And yes, we all have to learn. We make mistakes and the like, but they want to hear your story. Don't be Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or even Martin Luther King, who was probably one of the best orators the world has ever seen. The way you and I have spoken over a coffee at conferences is exactly the way you speak on stage. And that's you, it's your authenticity. That also helps a lot of the stress, because I don't have to try and be like Steve Jobs or So what are the things when you started speaking, the things that you know now that you wish you knew then? What are some of the 1 or 2 or 3 key things you think you've learned that people can benefit from?
Okay, so I think there's the soft skill side of things, and then the hard skill side of things. More on the soft skill side of things, mentally, you need to understand the fact that you were selected for a reason, right? You're seen as the expert. You need to believe in yourself. That's something I wish I knew off the bat, because I used to feel a bit inferior in the beginning. I always asked myself, am I good enough? I kind of peaked early from engineering to sales engineering. Do I know enough? And I doubted myself a few times. So I would advise that on the soft skills, make sure that you're confident enough and you believe in yourself. And there's ways in which you could do this. More on the hard skills, look, there's a mechanic, there's an art, like you would know, there's a craft to how you do either public speaking, write an article, and so forth. So respect the assignment that you've been given is a very important element that you need to have, because when you respect it, you won't be so relaxed that if you're caught off guard, then you go blank, right? But if you respect it, no matter how basic the gig is, you need to respect it enough to know that it needs your time and effort. And once you do that, everything else will fall in place. So the hard skills now stems from, is this a webinar? Is this a keynote? How long is it? Who's the audience? Things like that. That's more technical. It's not soft skills. It's more I can't be talking basics of AI in front of a CTO because he's probably at that level because he's quite technical and he knows what he's talking about, right? So I have to know that the content that I'm going to be sharing is strong and enriched enough for it to meet its target audience. And that's more on the technical things. You can use Gen AI and all these kind of tools to help you do that, but they can only do so much. We spoke about how you and I are speaking now is the same way we speak in these keynotes, right? It's because we have built that DNA and style of how we do things, and that's something that grows with time.
Yeah, you're right. And an important thing you mentioned here is the preparation, because you walk onto the stage and you go for it. I sometimes spend about 6 hours of prep for a 1 hour talk. And sometimes when I have clients who don't want to pay me my hourly fee for the talk, they say that is a massive fee for an hour. I said, but no. It's just me talking. The actual work is 6 or 10 hours.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, if you want to, because you owe it to the conference organizer, but you owe it to the audience to be prepared. Know your subject, watch out and learn about the most recent trends and news, get to know the audience, mingle with them. But I think the more prepared you are, the more confident you are. There's a quote from Gary Player, that famous South African golfer. I probably will not say it correctly, but I think he said something like, the more I practice, the luckier I get. It was Abraham Lincoln who said, and again, I'm going to mess it up, but he said, if I have to cut down a tree, I will spend, I don't know what he said, 5 hours sharpening my blade and 1 hour cutting a tree, or something like that. So this doesn't help. You have to cut it. You have to be prepared and not over prepared. It doesn't help you study 40 hours for a talk, but be very, very prepared. Sorry, I'll edit that out.
No need.
How do you find what is best to get onto the conference circuit? Obviously, as your profile grows and as you work for a great company like you are, you get people who approach you. But if no one approaches you and you have to approach them, how do you find the conferences? What is that email or that message? How do you get them to say, okay, we will consider you? How do you get onto the circuit, do you think?
Well, you know what? The best thing you can ever do is have a profile, number one. Number two, you got to start somewhere. You got to have that I got to start somewhere mentality. So if it means landing a gig for free, do it, right? Because that's how you get your name out there. So my advice would be, get involved start small as well. You don't have to be a keynote speaker as your first gig. Start doing some thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn, write some articles of how you understand certain things. That's how you build a following. That's number one. Number two, see what work is such a powerful place to grow your brand as a person, because they have webinars, they have all these other things that you want to do at a personal level. Why not start participating in those? Grow the confidence. It can start internally, and then when you have public webinars as a business, go for it, join them, be part of it. You don't even sometimes have to be a speaker. You could even ask questions that distinguish you as a person, to say, wait, maybe this guy has a story to say. That's how you start. You won't get your first keynote gig by just waiting, right? You have to be proactive. I mean, there was a time personally when events were coming up, they normally get advertised like in general 12 months in advance. I would actually contact the event organizers and say, hey, I'm interested in this topic. I can do it for free, or you can just cover X for me and then I'll do it. So these are ways in which you can also approach it, so that you can start building a brand as a person.
Right.
And you know what's another powerful thing? Just you yourself posting a video of what you think about a specific topic on LinkedIn. you will grow momentum and you will get more confident as you do some of those things.
It's so true. I mean, with our smartphones these days, it's not like 10 or 15 years ago. You can record 60 seconds of video. Just look into the camera and chat, and you can edit it or redo it. Don't try to keep it perfect because you'll never get it done. But the more your face, the more they hear that you can speak properly. And the key for me is getting that first gig, and do it for free because no one's going to pay you initially. In fact, I've been speaking for about a decade now, or at conferences, and it's only been the last, I would say, 4 years that I've been able to bill for it. But it took time to build up that public profile. And then I started realizing that most of my speaking gigs I get from people who visit the conferences I speak at. So don't be greedy. Money is important, but do that first few gigs. I almost want to say that first year or two's worth of gigs for free. Let them cover your costs. You shouldn't travel and fly and stay in a hotel at your cost, but don't charge for it. Unless because I remember I once had a company, an insurance company, who said, what do I charge for a talk? It's quite a few years ago. And I said, what is in your budget? And they gave me an amount which was like staggering. And I said, that's what I charge. But that's not to break. Most of the time it's free, and that's fine because you get your name out there. You also get a lot of consulting work, professional work, potential. In fact, 4 or 5 of the jobs I've had over the last few years came out of people who met me at a conference, didn't go through the submit your CV interview. They just offered me a job. So get yourself out there. Start doing it. I want to ask you a bit about the representation here in Africa regarding speakers of color, female speakers, different voices. It is fairly limited, and there are many reasons. I spoke to previous guests about it, about cultural reasons, especially from an African female point of view and others. I do think conference organizers should do more, but not just for ticking the box. It's just we need diverse, different backgrounds. But my experience is that some African people, especially women, are shy or just not responding. They just don't say, I want to come and speak, even though they're some of the smartest people I've ever met, C-level in the banks. What's your advice to them? Because we need more of them, a lot more of them.
Well, first of all, you're kind of like the solution to all of this, because now you're creating these kind of platforms to let people know that there are ways in which you can grow as a person. From a diversity perspective, for me, it's twofold, right? Yes, there is a lack, right? But just because there's a lack, we shouldn't just bring quantity over quality of people from a diverse background for the sake of representation. So it's twofold in a sense that, okay, let's get the diversity going up, but let's also get the right people with the right understanding and the right expertise behind it to do it. I've seen what you're talking about. A lot of these tech events that I go to, it's always the same people. The same people who are invited because, they're at that level because, they're good at what they do. But there is a shortage, especially women. There is a shortage of female Black women who, who could possibly also do the same and get into this public speaking space. I think platforms like yours, forums like yours, will allow to get the message out there that, there's a demand for these kind of speakers and people who can speak the African context of how we see tech and how tech can address our market in terms of the challenges that we are having. I think it's also more on the public and private sectors to also embed this kind of initiative on their end as well, right? In other words, as a business, diversity is quite a broad topic. And it's kind of like a requirement, especially from a regulation perspective in SA. But can you imagine if this aspect of it is also part of it, right? Yes, you're a diverse company. Yes, you hire and allow certain people from walks of life to be part of your business. But where's their voice? You're ticking the boxes, but what do they have to say, right? Embedding that in the DNA of businesses, I think, could also add a lot of value. Doesn't matter if it's public or private sector.
Absolutely true. All right, just before we end off, what's lying ahead for you this year? What's your ambition? What's your aim? More conferences, more clients?
Definitely more conferences. Clients, maybe more on a work perspective. But I think this year is a year for us, including yourself, to be the pioneers of AI and allowing it to add value rather than scare people. You know, a lot of people are worried that AI will take people's jobs and so forth. I think it's our responsibility to not leave people behind and guide them and show them that AI is there to augment their life in a more positive way. I think these discussions need to be had more than the AI and the tech itself, because people are afraid, and people like you and me need to reassure people and ensure that they're not left behind.
It's, you know, we have a moral responsibility. You can almost say we have a calling. And that's why you can't sit down and not speak at the events. People need to hear your voice, even if it's imperfect.
Yeah.
You've shared a lot of good things, my good friend. I can't wait to get this out there for people to learn from you. I want to wish you the very best. I'm sure our paths will cross at a number of events. Thank you for you. Thank you. And just keep on going. Keep on doing what you do, because people need to hear what you have to say.